Hello, everyone. Hello. Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. Hi. Happy Tuesday. We're back here one more time. Hello. Good evening, everyone. I hope you all are having a great day so far, great starts to your weeks. This is Inhale Exhale presented by Across Boundaries. My name is Rodney DeVerlis, and I'm so happy to have you here live or to have you watching this in playback later. Before I begin, I want to acknowledge that this current space I'm sitting in is in my living room, which is on Queen Street in downtown Toronto, traditional territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit River, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat peoples. And that this site has actually been a site of human activity for over a millennia and 10,000 years of human activity. And for me, as a displanted descendant of enslaved Africans, for you who are watching this, whether you're a settler or not, we all have a collective responsibility to honor, protect, and to sustain this land. And I'm thankful for the original caretakers for the work intending to this land and recognizing the future responsibility on all of our ends to continue that work. I am so excited for today's session, Healing while Black in academia. Such an important conversation to be had. I'm so excited for a facilitator to be welcoming him in this virtual world. We can cross borders so easily. I want to help welcome Josh Odom. Josh is a trauma-informed life coach and is the founder and curator of Healing While Black, an online platform devoted to normalizing conversations around mental health for Black and Indigenous queer, trans, and gender nonconforming people. He understands his mental health is inextricably linked to anti-Blackness and queer antagonism. His goal is to provide comprehensive and care for marginalized communities. And we are so excited to have him facilitate this very important conversation. Please help me welcome Josh Odom. Hi, Josh.
Hey, Rodney, how you doing?
Hey. We are doing well. We're doing well. So excited to have you and your energy.
Oh, it is an honor. It is a privilege to be here. Thank you all so much for having me.
It's our pleasure. You know, I'm just gonna pass it right on to you. So everybody, if you're at home, let's make some applause for Josh Odom.
Appreciate you. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to Rodney. Thank you to Tanvir. Thank you all so much for just allowing me to be in this space with you all. Again, as Rodney said, my name is Josh. My pronouns are he and his. I'm the founder and curator of Healing While Black. I am a trauma-informed social justice life coach. A lot of the work that I do is around critical masculinities with Black men of all experiences, Black queer, trans, cisgender, heterosexual men, non-binary, masculine folks, to really have conversations about what we need to do to upend systems that deprive us of our humanity and keep us from being in full community with other Black people. So thank you so much. I just wanted to, again, I can't say it enough. Thank you for having me here. So I want to just get right into it. We're having a conversation around being Black and Indigenous in the academy, in a panoramic, in an anti-Black and anti-queer and anti-trans, a historically violent space such as the academy. So just wanted to give you all a moment. You know, we are going to be talking about some heavy things here, and I wanted to allow everyone the opportunity to know that this is going to be a back and forth. So I encourage everyone to please leave comments, please drop things in the chat. I don't want to just lecture at folks. We're going to make this as interactive as possible. So thank you so much. And let's get right into it. Pull up my PowerPoint here. Share screen. 1 second, y'all. All right, let's get into it. So like I said before, we're talking about Healing While Black in grad school in a panoramic. We're navigating oppressions and COVID isolations in pursuit of our degrees. A lot of us are pursuing advanced degrees, pursuing their bachelor's, just trying to get certifications, doing things that require a lot of intellectual and emotional energy. And this is a time where our intellectual and emotional energy is spread so thin. We're trying to care for ourselves, we're trying to care for our loved ones, we're trying to care for community. And this is hard. Grad school is hard. School is hard when times are quote unquote normal or good, and it's especially hard right now. So let's get right into it. So, just a little bit about me. I am an alum of the University of Massachusetts in Amherst in the States, class of 2017. I went from undergrad straight to grad school. I left in 2019 due to an undiagnosed depression. And that definitely left me in a space where um, I wasn't considering what I wanted to do. I thought that I was a failure. I thought that I had totally squandered my potential and my growth and my work. And I floundered for a couple of years trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And in that process, able to give birth to what was another Instagram account under a different name, but then grew into Healing While Black, again, a virtual platform dedicated to the mental health and wellness of Black LGBTQ people. We have over 40,000 social media followers across Twitter, Instagram, and Clubhouse, and we've generated over 1 million impressions over the past year. And through the work that I've been able to do, we were creating a database along with my friend Jewel. Shout out to Jewel the Gym. Shout out to the Sunday Survivor Series. Just want to give a quick plug to all my friends. We were able to create a database of over 100 Black mental health professionals to provide services, domestic violence services, survivors who have survived a myriad of different things. We were able to provide them services and healing modalities to over 500 people. And one thing I'm also proud of is we were able to crowdfund via social media to provide emergency financial support to over 100 people since last April. And I've facilitated trainings, built curriculum on critical masculinity for staffers, including chief equity officers for My Brother's Keeper initiative in Baltimore, Maryland, in the States. In the those y'all who don't know, the My Brother's Keeper initiative was the program that was started under President Barack Obama. But enough about that. Let's get into it. Let's get right into it. So my graduate school experience was, as 21 said, a lot. Again, like I said before, I went straight into graduate school from undergrad, didn't really take much time off, and I was really struggling. I was very, very active in undergrad. My sophomore year, actually, uh, the August before I came back for my sophomore year, Michael Brown was killed. The movement for Black Lives was in full effect, and we were organizing all year long. Not only were we organizing on a national and international level as a part of the United States Student Association, we were also organizing on the campus level because there were a number of anti-Black, anti-Latinx hate crimes that uh, afflicted our campus. And we had to organize, we had to rally, we had to meet with different university officials on top of trying to go to school, on top of trying to be okay, on top of paying to go to school. Because again, I was an out of state student. I'm from New York, went to school in Massachusetts. So I still had to come up with a way to pay for my education while also trying to figure out a way to make this place a little bit better than what I inherited it. So all of this to say, graduating in 2017, taking some time to really figure out what I wanted to do, I did none of that. I did not take any time to process anything that I really went through. I didn't take time to really heal from the trauma I experienced. I didn't take time to distance myself from the academy. I didn't do any of those things. I instead went right into graduate school and looking back on it in a field that I really didn't want to do. I had no interest in doing labor law or labor studies. I just felt it was a thing that I could do in order to not go home, because going home was I translated that into me being a failure and not doing what I had to do to be the successful Black student that I was touted to be. So again, another bout with depression. I experienced another bout with depression. It got really bad at one point in time. Just wanted to be very transparent with you all. It got really bad to where I left school again and really figured out, well, what am I going to do with my life? And figuring this out now, my mental health was being compromised not only by the anti-Blackness that I received, not only by the anti-Blackness that I was a recipient and a survivor of, but also the queer antagonism and the fact that there were a number of people around me in my department, in just the university as well, who did not have the terminology, the language, or the supports to support me in the ways in which I wanted to be supported and the ways in which I needed to be supported and the work that I wanted to do. I wanted to do work on mental health and anti-Blackness as a part of my culminate my master's thesis. There wasn't that many resources put forth to help me in that regard. So if it wasn't for my friends, my older fam, I wouldn't have made it. So I'm just very, very fortunate to have come out the other side and be doing work that I'm called to do. I am pursuing my master's of social work. Of course, COVID had other plans, but it's really affirming and grounding and healing to be in a space, to be in an environment that affirms you and that supports you, and that you're not having to consistently argue down people who are trying to argue down your humanity, your experience, and your existence. So that is a big arc, a broad arc of my graduate school experience. And again, to say that this was something that was uniquely impacted by the anti-Blackness that I was a recipient of on a historically white university. So I wanted to bring in a quick survey. I'm not going to bombard y'all with stats, but I wanted to bring in a quick survey from the National Institutes of Health. They did a qualitative study last year and surveyed 195 college students about what the toll was, what the toll was that COVID was taking on them, not only just from a academic stance, but from a mental health stance. So they surveyed almost 200 students, 195 students. Out of that 195, 138, that's 71%, indicated increased stress and anxiety due to COVID-19. Those included fears and worries about their own health and the health of their loved ones. Another 177%, 177 or 91% of people reported negative impacts on the pandemic in terms of difficulty concentrating. Over 89% of people reported disruptions to sleep. People are not getting good sleep. 86% of people, other respondents, reported decreased social interactions. We have to socially distance, so they're not getting the kinds of positive, formative interactions that we're used to. Another 86% of people reported an increase in concerns on their academic performance. They may not have had the supports that they were used to, and therefore their grades are slipping. And then lastly, 82% of the respondents said that they were receiving some support and helped themselves by either adopting negative or positive coping strategies or coping mechanisms. We don't have to go into what those coping mechanisms might look like or might not look like, but people are trying to cope in the best ways they see fit because of all the things that we have experienced over the past year. And we can assume and infer, not even assume, we can infer and make a qualitative case that those numbers are increasingly worse for Black and Indigenous students of color. So we talked about graduate school. We talked about my graduate school experience. We talked about what the research is showing. But then the word that was listed on the flyer that I want to touch on today, just for a little while, is ethnostress. And ethnostress first appeared in the public sphere, the public domain in 1992 in a paper called Ethnostress, The Destruction of the Aboriginal Spirit by Bob Anton and Diane Hill from Ontario. Now we're going to use other languages, just Indigenous First Peoples, as we have grown in our vernacular and terminology. But the point that I wanted to stress here are two things. At the time of contact, Aboriginal Indigenous First Peoples were subjected to the first forms of physical, psychological, emotional, and spiritual abuse, which came with the force of colonialism. As the scourge of colonialism grew, the human spirit of Aboriginal Indigenous First Peoples became overwhelmed by the oppressive forces stemming from the racism that they experienced. And I want to pay special attention to that eroding, the overwhelming of the human spirit, of the spirit under the weight of not only racism, but queerphobia, transphobia, and we can extend these things into the lives of marginalized people with intersecting identities. As we understand this, we understand that these types of isms have an immense toll, they take an immense toll on not only our ability to focus and concentrate and get our work done, they erode the spirit. They erode our ability to be present and to live, to laugh, to learn, and to love. And eventually we get fatigued in very material ways. Also wanted to bring in some pieces from Dr. Candace Nicole Hargens from the Center for Healing Racial Trauma. And she provides this anecdote that I really love. And I'm sure we've all been privy to this. We've all experienced this at some point in time in our lives. So I'm going to read it to you all. And it goes like this. You enter the faculty or university club or insert whatever place on campus that you usually frequent. And every portrait on the wall is of a white man. You refrain from using your mother tongue at work to avoid possibly confirming stereotypes. Your colleague publicly conflates the demand for a quote unquote diversity hire with lowering the academic standard. And you wonder why you have a headache. You wonder why you're taking shallow breaths or why you're more fatigued than normal. Racist stressors from microaggressions to direct racial harassment and everything in between take a physical and mental toll. Racist stressors elicit race-based stress reactions, the involuntary immediate responses we can experience in our thoughts, emotions, and our bodies. So I'm going to stop sharing really quickly, very quickly, because I know I threw a lot at everybody. And I want to just give everybody a moment, if they had an opportunity, if they have conversations, if they have something that they wanted to share, I would love to answer questions. I would love to have a conversation as we can right now, because we're talking about a lot of very heavy things. We're talking about people who are dedicating their lives to this work, to the work of eradicating and eroding not only anti-Black racism, but queerphobia or queer antagonism, trans antagonism, and providing us with not only qualitative but quantitative research and data that proves that Black and Indigenous people of color, especially queer, trans, and non-conforming Black and Indigenous people of color, assume these kinds of stressors every day when they set foot onto these historically white universities and colleges that are built on stolen land. So I'm just wanting to I want to take a moment just to stop. I know I threw a lot at y'all, and I want to make sure if anyone has any comments, if anyone has any questions, please leave them in the comments before I go any further. I'm cool with silence. If there are no questions right now, I totally get it. But I just wanted to stop right there and just take a moment before I go any further, because I know I threw a lot at y'all. And thank you all so much for being here, and thank you all for being attentive, because I know this is not a thing that everybody wants to speak to or wants to speak about, but it's so, so important. And thank you all so much for being attentive here. Okay. Thank y'all so much. So with that, if there are no questions, I'm gonna jump back into the PowerPoint so we can close out the last half, and then we can open it up with the conversation with Rodney and continue on there. And I have resources for you all as well too. So just please be mindful of that too. Awesome. I also want to bring in someone, Dr. Eric Anthony Roman, who speaks about not only his experiences in graduate school, but also the structure of graduate school, the structure of your assistantships, and how these things are created and constructed. So for Black prospective graduate students, for Indigenous prospective graduate students, for queer, trans, non-conforming, prospective graduate students, I recommend this as a starting point. To be aware that racism is the norm in the academy. Even if you are generally shielded from microaggressions, racism is deeply entrenched in the operation of graduate departments, universities, disciplines, and professional organizations. It affects who and what gets funded, who and what gets published where, who gets hired and tenured, who gets admitted, who graduates, and so forth. So when we're having these conversations, we have to understand that these are the bedrocks of these institutions. We can't expect institutions that were literally built on stolen land to be equitable, just, inclusive, and diverse. We just cannot expect that from its inception. These institutions commit acts of violence, and then we take these things all the way to the graduate level. There's an acute violence that we are facing when we try to navigate these treacherous systems. We're talking about who and what gets funded. We have assistantships, or at least in the States, we are funded via assistantships. Most of us who are pursuing either master's or doctoral level work, we have assistantships so we can do our work and focus on our studies and tend to our costs of living. Publishing. Publications are incredibly important if you're trying to go through the doctoral system. You talk about getting hired, getting tenured, not just adjunct positions, but who is getting tenured and where, who is graduating, who is getting admitted. All these things are incredibly important to think about when we consider who and what are getting to these points and getting to these systems, or getting to these spaces, I should say. And the last piece I want to bring in is a piece from Anita Jack Davis from Queen's University, I believe it's in Ontario. And being very intersectional about this is that Black women, Indigenous women, Black femmes, Indigenous femmes, oftentimes assume a other mother role for undergraduates, for colleagues, and other folks that they happen to be in proximity with in the academy. And other mothering can be described as the practice of raising children who are not your own, i.e., it takes the village to raise the child. Again, nothing wrong with that in a vacuum, but we have to understand that these women, these femmes, are also navigating these systems of race, not only racism, but sexism, xenophobia, classism, queer antagonism. They're trying to produce their scholarship, they're trying to maintain their job security, and again, placing this undue burden of caring for other people as a means to keep them in school and get them to graduation. So it's very important because I had other mothers as well in my time in university. And it was not until I left it was not until I left until I realized how much of a strain that was to ask people, ask Black women, ask Black femmes, ask Indigenous femmes to care for the community when we are not providing them any additional, or even not even additional, any basic protections under these same ills that we have to then traverse as well. So being mindful of that, being mindful of the other mothering, being mindful of those additional labors that we task toward femmes in the academy is something that we need to be incredibly critical of as people who call ourselves accomplices to Black femmes, as accomplices to Indigenous femmes in dismantling misogyny and sexism. So just wanted to put that out there as well as a note to really be considerate, and not only consider it, be intentional as how we engage with folks in our communities who are more marginalized, who may identify or have an identity that is more marginalized than ours. And before I wrap up, I wanted to provide some resources. So these are 3 books, and 1 resource that I find to be incredibly important when I discuss how to navigate my role as someone who is an interloper, I like to call myself. I'm not of the academy. I consider myself to be an intellectual. I love the pursuit of knowledge, but I myself am not an academic. I don't want to be an academic. So how do we take these things that we are learning and subvert them so we can get what we need and also mitigate harm? So the first piece is The Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health by Dr. Rita Walker. Navigating an Unequal System, Learning Tools for Emotional Wellness, and Get the Help You Deserve. The second piece is Black Fatigue, How Racism Erodes the Mind, the Body, and the Spirit by Mary Frances Winters. Third is My Grandmother's Hands by Resmaa Menakem. And then the fourth piece is actually the NAP Ministry. And I encourage everyone to follow the NAP Ministry on Instagram and Twitter because they directly push back against this idea that grinding, that overexertion, that overworking is our key to being able to have these things. We all deserve rest. Black people deserve rest. Indigenous people deserve rest. Queer and trans Black people deserve rest. We deserve rest as a birthright, and that is central to our liberation efforts. And we cannot continue to push forth this idea of grinding, team no sleep, all these really toxic tropes that do not consist or do not condone us really embracing our humanity. So some last final questions to think about is, how do we heal from microaggressions when they're in our faces every day? They range from the micro, the subtle, to the overt violent acts that are in our face that causes harm just as much as the microaggressions do, but they're harder to subvert, and they're harder to ignore and move about. How do we upend oppressive systems and structures, even if these oppressive systems and structures are things that we are moving into? How do we ensure that the university, the college, is operating equitably? How do we ensure that the people who deserve to be here, who deserve to have funding, who deserve to have assistantships, who deserve to have all these things cared for and taken care of, how do we ensure that those people are taken care of in the ways in which they need to? How do we describe and measure success in graduate school? Because clearly, considering where we are right now as a global community, our linear process has been disrupted. First of all, there's no such thing as a linear process to anything, especially not right now. So we have to really consider, what does success look like in graduate school? If I'll tell you a personal story, I really had to rethink and reshape the ways in which I've considered success. I've measured success in graduate school because I know for a fact that my journey did not and does not look like my counterparts. So my ways of measuring success is, sometimes I can produce this piece of scholarship. I can write the pages. I can read the books. I can be responsive to emails. I can answer the students. And some days, if I manage to respond to an email, that is a good day, and I'll take that as a W. We really need to extend ourselves more grace right now. I read a piece that was put up on Erica Hart's page that essentially stated that we all need more than any one of us can give right now. So it is incredibly, incredibly important to extend ourselves grace, especially as myself, I'm a recovering perfectionist, and I want to move with the same fervor and the same type of timeline that I was going to say the old world, or life before COVID, did extend. Needing to understand that that did not work then, and it's damn sure not going to work now, and having to be very honest with myself as to, what am I chasing? Why am I grinding so hard? And is this pushing me toward the path in which I want, which is to be holistically well, to do the work for the community that I want to do? What are healthy habits to start? I know a lot of folks have been talking about therapy. A lot of folks have been talking about finding a therapist, finding someone to process their emotions with. And I know a lot of Black and Indigenous therapists are stretched to capacity. So what are our modes of recourse? I would love to invite all of my Black friends, all of my Black listeners, all the Black participants to the Sunday Survivor Series. It is a space that is exclusive and open to Black people across the diaspora, in which your healing, especially my queer, trans, and non-conforming Black folks. I would love to invite y'all to the Sunday Survivor Series, so you all can have a space in which your healing is centered, and this space is curated with your healing in mind. And then the last question I received in my DMs from a participant was this idea of how to succeed and how do you measure success when you've been made to feel like a diversity admit. And my question is simple. First and foremost, when we have these conversations, we are again reinforcing this idea that this is a white school, and my Black body, my Black life being in this space takes away from another white person or another white body being here. So again, this reaffirmation that this space is white, you are Black, you do not belong here. And this is just my personal take on it, is that whether I'm a diversity admit or not, I'm trying to get my degree in balance. I know for a fact that you, like I said before, like, you don't want my Black kids, you don't want my Black ass here. And truly, honestly, I don't want to be here. So how do I navigate this space to get me what I need? I do not have to engage with the theatrics. I don't have to engage with anything I don't want to do, except do what I need to do and leverage as many resources as possible. So when it is time to go and I can never look back. A lot of my colleagues have been able to maneuver through graduate school with that assumption and really being clear on this university does not want me here. You people do not want me here. So thus, I know that. So I'm not trying to force you all to accept me or to love me or to do anything that you really don't want to do in the first place. So let me do my thing. And of course, letting us do our thing is why we're having this conversation to begin with, because oftentimes we're not allowed to do our thing. There are systemic barriers that are in place from allowing us to do our thing. As said, if we can then create this kind of a framework in which puts me in opposition, continual opposition to what is happening here, but also understanding that I am not here to upend this space. Because truly and honestly, if it was going to happen, it would have already. And so understanding what the institution wants to do versus what they don't want to do, and where do I fit into that kind of dialogue has been able to help me immensely traverse what I need to traverse, be active when I need to be active, and do the things I want to do so I can help my community and do the things that I want to do to help my people inside and outside of the space, but mainly outside of the space. Okay, wonderful. Okay. First of all, thank you all so much for your attentiveness. Thank you all so much for being here. I want to, oh, sorry, let me just grab those titles once again. And I'm going to put them in the chat for everybody as well. So the first piece was The Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health by Dr. Rita Walker. I'll put the titles up one more time just so y'all can see. So it's The Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health by Dr. Rita Walker. It's Black Fatigue, How Racism Erodes the Mind, Body, and Spirit by Mary Frances Winters. My Grandmother's Hands, Racialized Trauma and the Pathways to Mending Our Hearts and Bodies by Resmaa Menakem. And then the last piece is not a title, it's actually the name of an organization, an account that is amazing on Instagram called the NAP Ministry. And under the NAP Ministry, and the graphic says, Rest is Liberation. And I would be happy to send folks some more pieces, some more books, some more resources, whatever you all need to be as informed as possible. I would love to just be a resource in that process, in that goal. But thank you all so much for being here. Thank you also so much for allowing me to present. I wanted to leave time. I know Rodney and I are gonna have a dope conversation. So I really do appreciate you all being so attentive. Thank you all so much.
Wow. I mean, like you were bringing up like some some really like personal things. I feel like, you know, as someone who is, I noticed there was a comment on recovering perfectionists and the sort of role that we play in the academy. And I know for sure when you were talking about particularly going to grad school there, if I can speak for myself, when I think back to my undergrad, it was so garbage that there's deep parts that question what is my role to continue moving forward. And so I really appreciate you complicating that and sort of laying it out like that for us. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, where do you see extractive possibilities? I think one of the things that that very much felt really exciting about my undergrad were actually the things that happened outside the classroom, but specifically the amount of resources that I was really able to funnel to community, and how easy it was, particularly if you're someone that's involved beyond school, like how easy it is to just really give somebody space, give somebody funding, collaborate, like the generative possibilities because of it was such a well-resourced institution. I felt really well actually extracting that out. I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
No, absolutely. Listen, absolutely. I cannot tell you how many resources I was able to pull and extract from the channel. Not I, the community and I, like, who are working within the organizations, within the institutions. We were able to pull a lot and bring some really dope people to campus. We were able to go to a lot of different places. Actually, while I was at UMass working with the United States Student Association, that's how I got in touch with the Canadian Federation of Students, right? So even those things right there, there are possibilities to leverage resources, to leverage monies, to leverage material things, so we can get those outside the classroom experiences that propel us to do the things we want to do right now. I know I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you if I didn't do those things. So I encourage everyone who remains in the academy, as you can, do leverage those resources, do leverage those decision makers to get the things you need to get done, because you have the power to assert and take and extract what you need to do what you think, to do what you want to do after you leave.
Absolutely. And I really felt, I mean, thematically, you return back to healing again and again, like this need of restoring, this need of healing, this need of rebuilding. And I'm really fascinated in thinking about what does that look like for perhaps, and not necessarily for university, but all across the board, from college to technical institute, like, what does that look like as an end of pandemic like, what are some ways that people can put boundaries up? What are some ways that people can navigate what will likely be even more tumultuous, right? Like ending this pandemic, coming back to whatever is a sort of normal. We can anticipate that these institutions are going to be are gonna be rocky for a while. What does to you preparing yourself, creating boundaries, healing, what does that look like for, what could that look like in this sort of weird in-between moment?
No, absolutely. So the first thing I wanted to say, and that's why I was being very intense, because I didn't want to put a slide up for the healing component, because I wanted us to have a conversation about this. So for me, that healing looks like, again, like a real affirmation and reaffirmation of my boundaries, of I am not here to do the job of a diversity, equity, and inclusion officer as a graduate student, right? And also, let's just also say, like, even a diversity, equity, and inclusion officer doesn't really do a good job all the time. So being very clear as to where my boundaries are in that, and knowing that I cannot sustain myself doing this work if I am allowing myself to be pulled in 15 different directions. It's easier said than done, of course, but knowing now my boundaries look like being able to say no, being able to not organize this thing, being able to not respond in reactionary measures, not because there's a lack of care, right? Because understanding that we have a team and a community of people surrounding us, and we already do that work in community, right? So instead of you trying to, what's the word I'm looking for? Instead of you trying to circumvent the people in the community that you could put those resources toward, and trying to pay me or do this with me or do this with us, right? Because I've definitely been in situations in which there are people doing the exact same thing that I was doing, right? But instead of actually putting time and energy toward building a relationship and supporting them, they thought it would be just sufficed to have me, an undergraduate student who did not know his worth at the time, just
Yeah.
do this and check it off the box. So those are the boundaries that I'm
100%.
saying. And also knowing that this work is labor. And again, we do this work out of a labor, and it's a labor of love because we want our people, we want better for our people. And also at the same time that I don't do things for free.
Yeah.
In regards to these institutions, right?
Absolutely.
I have a lot of things I will do for free for organizations that I care about, for people that I care about, for community members that I care about. I don't do shit. Excuse me. I don't do nothing for
Oh,
free.
shit. 100%.
I
100%.
don't do anything for free with them anymore. That's just my bearings.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's something, I think there's also something that I feel like I'm thinking through, even around the different healing that needs to happen post, after the academy. And in many ways, the like personal healing, the financial healing, and I'm sure, I graduated with enough debt that really felt like it was like a mountain. And then that's in Canada, thinking about the United States and how that's if this is a mountain, that's a mountain range. That's the Himalayas. What does healing look like beyond the academy when we're done? What would that look like?
Mm-hmm. So to bring it back to the academy for 1 second, and then to bring it back out, I do believe that organizations and institutions of higher learning need to do a lot more investment in their centers for counseling and psychological health. So putting forth material resources to not only, if some schools do not have one, right? Building one, sustaining one, making sure that there are clinicians that look like us, trying to treat us. So making that a big priority during and post-COVID, because there's already been enough trauma to last. And unfortunately, there's been enough happening this last year to last clinicians a lifetime of work, a career's worth of work. And it's terrible to have to say that, but there was a looming mental health crisis coming before COVID hit. And now we have to complicate that. And there's going to be a really high demand. There really needs to be a lot more. And I personally think that, the student loans should be forgiven across the board, right? But all of these different essential workers, including but not limited to the community guardians, the caretakers, right? The social workers, the therapists, the organizers, the healers, right? We need to have our student loans eradicated. Period. Everybody does, right? Everybody does. But I cannot talk about essential workers and not include the community healers in that conversation, because look, I'm just being 100%. I have not heard anybody throughout this whole pandemic, anybody that I know, say, Rodney, I'm having a hard day. I need to call my Forex trader to make sense of all of this. I've never heard that. I haven't heard that yet, right? I have heard we got to call our social workers. We got to call our therapists. We need to call our psychologists, our psychiatrists, our clinicians. I've heard a real galvanizing around how do we support the folks that support us. And that needs to be something that is addressed on a structural and on the communal level. Rodney, you're on mute. I can't hear you.
I think what you're hitting on is the amount of additional labor that that folks who are, like you said, like anchored towards supporting community and making sure that we all make it out alive. Like the incredible amount of overworking. I know for sure everyone that I know that's a care worker has a long wait list and is working at speeds like 9 months of their busiest month over again and again and again. And I do think that in many ways, so many of us have, and communities all across this globe have filled in the cracks and filled in the blanks where our institutions or the state have failed. And I think that as you're mentioning, actually, it's not even just out of kindness. It's actually just like repaying back the debt, right? Like how many mutual aid funds that come through. In Toronto, there's like community fridges. There's folks that are out in encampments doing like literal work that that our city should be doing,
Right.
but our city's too, busy evicting folks. And so
Yeah.
ultimately, like that incredible amount of labor is in many ways all of us trying to keep the boat alive, patching
Right.
it up, doing whatever we need to do to make sure I get through, you get through, the people next to us get through.
Right.
And so I'm glad you mentioned that around. And I mean, your comment made me think of something even totally random out of the cuff. And it's honestly, this is going to be a hard pivot, but like in the context of healing, I'm seeing that there's some vaccine movement happening down in the States. I've been seeing a couple of my friends post it a little faster than us, I have to say. But describe to me your moment after the dust settles, when we're just picking back up, when we're just whatever that might mean, this like first step into this new world. What does that look like, feel like, smell like? What is that? What is that for you?
Ooh.
Ooh.
It looks like a drastic reshaping. And when I say reshaping, it means, as you said, the essential or the things that we once thought of as totally unshakable have fallen. And what was seemingly important, actually, these things don't mean anything, right? We can, like, I don't know how I don't know how, like, the GameStop or like the Dogecoin stock market played in Canada, but it's like, yo, like, this isn't real, right? We just manipulate things how we want. That's how 2008 happened. People just, stockbrokers using people's homes as their own gambling chips. None of this is real. And so I hope that in that, for me, it looks like a first and foremost, from a tangible standpoint, again, back to the healing standpoint, it looks like, again, their material support coming from not just mutual aid funds, but coming from state, local, and federal governments toward those who have been holding the community afloat. I'm talking about student loan cancellations. I'm talking about I'm talking about like free college, free higher education for those in general, but especially if they want to go into the healing services, right? If you want to go pursue your MSW, we need more social workers. We need more counselors. We need more therapists. We need more psychologists. We also need to see, again, back to the university, a divestment from these corporations who are profiting off of not only prison labor, but apartheid in Palestine, all across the global South. Like, first of all, the divestment of that and a reinvestment into departments that are funded, as I talked about, as Eric Groman talked about, departments who are producing not only scholar practitioners but thought leaders in regards to how do we move forward as a community and make sure this doesn't happen again. These departments need to be funded and funded well.
Mm-hmm.
And support the students and workers properly. Absolutely.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and I think it looks like a collective, like, yo, what the fuck just happened? Like, like just looking around as the dust settles and say, like, all right, well, a lot of us did not make it. Those of us who are here have, and none of us are going to forget this. So what do we need to do to ensure that we're not falling prey to private interest at the expense of people's lives?
Honestly, that's it. That's it. This new world. I'm here to take the first step with you, my friend,
Absolutely.
and all the folks who are joining us here. There's going to be a first step, and we're all going to make it, and we're going to take it, and we're going to hold each other and walk through it. Where can we find you, Josh? Where can anybody who's watching this live or watching it later, all the different ways that folks can plug in with you?
Sure. You can find me on Instagram at Healing While Black. I'm also on Twitter at Healing While Black. Just the black is spelled BLK on Twitter. You can also email me, josh@healingwhileblack.me. And if you want to go to my website, it's just healingwhileblack.me. I also know that we have a little bit of time left. So if you wanted to, I also, again, did not want to end a conversation about healing without doing some grounding breaths and affirmations. If you would indulge me.
Of course. Take it, my friend.
Of course. So I just want to pull this up. I know we were talking about a lot of heavy things, a lot of grief, a lot of trauma, a lot of arduous moments, painful moments that we're not out of. So I just wanted to name that and know that this is not a theory or an abstract. We're talking about our lives, like your life, my life, and all of our lives at the moment. So I just want to offer moments of respite when I can. And I just invite everyone, if they would like to join me in a collective breath and a couple of affirmations, if it feels good for you, you can close your eyes. You can place your hands wherever on your body that may need some healing at the moment. And I invite you, if you're lay prone, allow yourself to relax. Lower your shoulders, lower your tongue from the top of your mouth, unclench your jaw. And I invite you to inhale through your nose from the count of 5. Breathe it all in. Hold at the top. A deep, audible exhale. Just going to repeat this rhythm. Inhale through the nose for 5. Holding at the top. And a deep, audible exhale. Just once more. Hold at the top. And a deep, audible exhale. I just invite you to continue breathing. I invite you to continue with your breath. I am stopping. I am breathing. I am balancing. I am this breath. I am this moment. I am alive. I am supported. I am calming myself. I am loving every cell in my body. I am aligning. I am renewing. And I am powerful. I am in this moment that we've never seen before and will never see again. In this moment, we're okay. We're okay. We all need care. We all need support. We all need understanding. We were not meant to be in isolation for this long. We need ourselves. We need each other. We need community to lean on. We deserve to have community that we can lean on. You deserve community that you can lean on. And just remember that in this moment that we have not seen before and will never see again, we're here. And we're okay. We're okay. I just invite everybody to take one last deep inhale, breathing everything you want to take with you, all the healing energy, all the love and the support, all the peace. And then a deep, audible exhale, just let it go. Ashe. Thank you so much, Rodney. I appreciate you.
Ashe, 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 brother. Thank you so much. Blessings to you. Blessings to you. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for giving us your time and your space and your energy, and vice versa. You'll have Josh's information on the caption right here. You can find him on Instagram at Healing While Black, on Twitter at Healing While Black with BLK, and or email him at Josh at healingwhileblack.me or at healingwhileblack.me for the website. Oh my gosh. I'm in it right now. So zen. So much gratitude for everyone for joining us. This was the last of our February events for Inhale Exhale. We continue on next Tuesday with QT BIPOC Life, Love, and Loss, a grief workshop. And this is the recurring workshop with Christine Sue and Ronnie Ali. So you can check us out at acrossboundaries.ca/2SLGBTQ. Have a blessed evening. Have a blessed week, everyone. So much love to you all. Thank you.